Thank you guys for tuning in to another recap show of the Sit Down Malik Wright presented by First Star Logistics. As you guys know, every single week the Bengals play a game. We sit back and we recap the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was certainly a lot of ugly today. I'm joined by my man Evan on the show where you're probably used to seeing us on State of the Jungle together. So it's kind of fun to do this recap show with him. But yeah, man, not a lot of positives to talk about, right? I mean, not a lot of positive to talk about. The Bengals looked like a shell of the team that we've seen the last few weeks. Sort of what we were cautioning about a little bit when we were talking on State of the Jungle, how the Pittsburgh game was expected to be a tough game.
Yep.
You know, Cincinnati was expected to have answers for, this Pittsburgh Steelers aggressive defense, the blitzing, whatnot. None of those things really took place today. Yeah, man, I have a lot of things that I want to say, but before I jump into all that, make sure you guys do us a favor. I know you guys aren't happy, but give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. That being said, Evan, what are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts, immediate reaction on the loss?
Oh man. Obviously DJ Reader, missing him really hurts. Expected the defending the run to be a bit of a problem. Made life difficult on the linebackers too, trying to sift through all that. And we know that the linebackers generally have struggled with some of the quicker backs that extend horizontally and kind of hit the flats. And the Steelers did a lot of that with Jalen Warren, and we're very successful with that. Bengals offensive line struggled to hold up versus the Steelers pass rush. There were communication issues, just general pass pro issues. Jake Browning, I feel like this was a good game to kind of highlight the difference between completing a pass and being accurate, because they're not always synonymous. Sometimes you complete the pass even though the throw wasn't the most accurate. Ball location, when placed on a receiver's frame, leads to a lot more, or correlates really strongly with having yards after the catch, right? Which just makes sense. If you hit the receiver in stride and he doesn't have to stop and catch the ball behind him or jump to get it or stop in place, he can run through his momentum, keep going. We saw a lot of throws behind the receiver today on crossing routes and on drag routes and on slant routes. We saw a lot of kind of really high balls on the outside, and it wasn't his best game. It wasn't Jake Browning's best game, and that's completely fine as a guy who's a backup quarterback, came in to help out, fill in. Obviously, life gets really hard on you when you get down without scoring any points, and you kind of have to keep pushing the issue and get away from what's been working with you, which is a efficient run game, good play action game, and letting your receivers get yards after the catch. And that's obviously really difficult to execute when you get down so early and you make mistakes constantly, like just mistakes in coverage, one-on-one, mistakes when you're trying to throw the ball away and you throw a pick in the red zone and don't walk away with any points there. Pass pro mistakes where you got unblocked pressures. And we know some of these guys are going to get beat, right? Obviously, TJ Watt is going to get the better of Jonah Williams. TJ Watt gets the better of every single tackle he goes against. It's why he leads the league in sacks. We know that Orlando Brown is going to have trouble with speed off the edge. And this is why we got to build in answers for how to help slow that pass rush. And it doesn't mean you can chip every play necessarily, but there's shared responsibility between everybody. There was not much of anything good other than T. Higgins today, I would say. That's pretty much all I can say on my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's important always to even kill, and I think that's why we talked about it on the show. We never try to get too high, never try to get too low regarding everything, because at its core, Jake Browning definitely exceeded a lot of expectations, I would say, the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
I would say this coaching staff definitely tried to play to his strengths and try to coach towards his strengths. And I think what we saw today was we saw a pivotal game. We saw an AFC North style football game. Yeah. And, a lot of the things that they got away with the last couple of weeks, again, the more film you have out there, the more it's easy for a team to game plan for you.
Yeah. I think it's important. I know we've harped on it on the show that a lot of these throws were coming at the line of scrimmage. They were
Mhm.
averaging 7 yards after the catch versus the Jaguars. They were 10 yards after the catch per reception versus the Colts. Like, that was obviously not going to continue. And obviously, T. Higgins had that nice catch and run. Tyler Boyd kind of got bounced by the defender into some open space and found some space there. But obviously, the playmakers weren't going to be able to continually create there. And it's just unfortunate that at the same time that happened, the miraculous accuracy of Jake Browning also kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
And that kind of left the offense really in a tough spot today.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's one thing you always talk about. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet, the average depth of target, right? A lot of this was the playmakers, right? We always say get the ball to your playmakers. A lot of this was the playmakers making a lot of plays, even the T. Higgins. It was a deep slant route, essentially. He took the top off the defense. But I also want to speak to even a greater issue. I think that the Bengals offense severely missed Jamar Chase today, too.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to what a guy like Jamar Chase is able to do for an offense. And even if it's just being a decoy out there, right? It takes the pressure off of a lot of these other guys. Tanner Hudson, who's been a great target for Jake Browning, was non-existent today.
Right.
The absence of Jamar Chase really held the offense down, I would say. And that speaks to how great of a player he is. But even more so than that, I think it was just very hard for the Bengals to really, I think it was really hard for the Bengals to find a rhythm today. They attempted to at points with the screen game. Some things were, I would feel like, were a little predetermined beforehand.
Yeah, and even confusing sometimes where the timing of the plays just didn't seem to
real.
quite add up. And I don't know if that was maybe we talked about it while we were watching the game, that screen to Irwin where Browning kind of pump faked. And I don't know if after the Tanner Hudson issue last week, they got picked off and returned for a touchdown, and then having that throw early where I can't remember who he was targeting on that. Was it Sample or was it?
I think it was Charlie Jones.
Over on the right sideline, yeah. They had the 3 wide, and they tried to target him in the zone there, and he kind of jumped on it. And Alabama corner Levi Wallace almost took it. And I don't know if there was some hesitation there from Browning because of that. But
anytime you see a quarterback pump fake on a screen or like about throw it and bring it back, like I don't want it, and then throw it again, it's never meant for, at that point, throw it in the dirt.
Right. That's tough, man. And the defense obviously didn't do him a lot of favors, missed tackles. I feel like the lack of speed and athleticism kind of showed at a couple different spots, which I'm not trying to, I completely understand the context around Cheeto, who's an older corner, who's dealt with a multitude of injuries from the offseason into the season. I know that's tough for him, but there were a couple spots where he looked a little slow out of the gate today. Obviously, we know the linebackers are not the fastest or most athletic in the league, that are still just good. They're good linebackers, but their play has not matched the talent and what we have in our expectations, I think is fair to say.
Yeah, I agree, man. Some of the people out in the comment section aren't too happy right now. I see some people grilling Dax Hill. I think the reason why, I know a lot of people probably was expecting a passionate rant out of me, today, but I hate to say that I kind of expected this.
I think it's fair to say that the last couple of weeks were more of the surprise than this was.
Yeah. I would just say, like, I was more so surprised the way they played the last couple of weeks, considering all the injuries and stuff like that. But I think when you talk about the loss mounting of a guy like DJ Reader, and then you take out Jamar Chase, and then you take out, obviously Joe Burrow's already out of the lineup. You just take out, you add in all these different variables. It makes life a lot difficult for this team to continue to overcome all the injuries, all the setbacks that they're starting to face and deal with. And it was bound to happen at some point, I felt like, you know what I mean? That being said, it was that being said, I don't think that you guys should be like completely like down and out on the potential of this team going forward in a couple, like next year and stuff like that. I definitely think it's just them trying to find themselves offensively. They still haven't yet.
You're doing the best you can with what you got.
What you got, right?
That's we knew. Come on, like if we're being real with ourselves, right? You realize that the backup quarterback competing really, really hard in that Jacksonville game. That was a fun game, right?
Yeah.
But we can realize the sustainability of what we were seeing, right? Where all these line of scrimmage passes, right? It just can't keep possibly going the distance. Eventually, they were going to get smart, like you said, with more film, being able to see that 32nd in average depth of target versus Jacksonville, 31st versus the Colts, and it's like it's a consistent at the line of scrimmage playmakers making plays, and that didn't happen. And also 17-3 going into the fourth quarter for the Vikings. Like, obviously, that comeback was magical, but there's a difference between appreciating what went into the win and understanding what can be predictive of future success. And though those wins were fun, I think anybody can look at them and say there was a little bit of flukiness to it. They made the plays they had to, but like, you needed a lot of good things to happen, and eventually your luck's going to run out there.
100%. And Nick, I see your comment. You said disagree Malik Zach's record. I'm not exactly sure what you're disagreeing with. This is not a Zach Taylor, me coming to Zach Taylor's aid or at all like that. I'm just saying I didn't expect, I knew that this was going to be a tough game for this Bengals team to go into Pittsburgh and knock off the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't really know if there's anything there that I said this that you can disagree with. I just haven't been impressed. I haven't been impressed with what we've seen from just the season in totality. You know what I mean? Like, at some point I was expecting, I thought that this offense, hey, maybe they found a rhythm with going to the running game and marrying that together with play action game and trying to make life a little easier for Jake. I started to see the bad play calling rear its ugly head last game at points when we were alerted to running the football. And then the second half, they started going back to Joe Mixon because there were points in time where he would just kind of like,
I think even tonight, the 2nd and 1 and in the red zone. And then you have that screen to Irwin off of the motion where you have him almost run across the entire formation and then turn around and run back. And it's like, okay, now that this guy has been running and is gassed, now we're going to throw it right to him. And again, that was another pass that's completed and goes down as completed. Oh my gosh, we're accurate. But again, it was behind him and it was low to the ground. And that takes away from his ability to have the sudden change in direction after he catches it. So it's like, that was a pass, 3rd and 1 pass, 4th and 1 pass. And it's like,
for me, it was weird too. It felt like Jake Browning wasn't seeing the field well at all today either. Like, it felt like we were talking about that one play where he's patting the ball, and it was a clear throw where we're like, oh, throw the ball away here. And nope, he doesn't. He decides to throw it into triple coverage. It gets picked off.
Right.
And, once again, like the outlets, the checkdowns were available. Tanner Hudson was there.
Well, again, it's even talking about, ball location. Like, I can't stress how important, like, defining accuracy outside of completion percentages, because again, it was that interception. Was it Highsmith dropped into coverage off of the edge and picked off the in route to T. Higgins. And it's like, if that ball, or maybe it was Yoshivas coming over the middle. If that ball's out in front of him where he can catch it and it's away from the defender, then it's a 20-yard gain. But because it was behind him and he had to slow down and catch with his hip, they gave Highsmith, who was a defensive end, an opportunity, or outside linebacker, however you want to define it, edge player, gave him the opportunity to make a play on the ball. And it's, again, I'm not trying to rag on Jake Browning. This is something we've been talking about, and today it finally came back to bite him.
Right. I agree. And I think it was just telling, you know what I mean? Like, even some of the stuff defensively today was just, it was clear they missed DJ Reader. The linebackers haven't been playing necessarily the best, but I also think that doesn't happen. I think that hurts when you don't have a consistent pass rush. I think that hurts when the only true pass rusher that's actually getting pressure out there today was Trey Hendrickson.
Zach Carter's getting moved off the line like
Zach
a tackling
Carter's,
sled.
Yeah, you got Jalen Warner absolutely eviscerating your linebacker. I mean, it was just we lost the physicality battle. We lost the physicality battle today. And I think that's AFC North football for you. You know what I mean? So, like, I think that there's a lot to fix in the offseason for sure. And even as you continue these next 2 weeks, again, I've never gotten out of necessarily the evaluation phase. Still evaluating this team, still evaluating the staff, and being able to see things married together on a consistent basis. So yeah, that's just my thought process on everything. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications. Okay, he said so. Okay, Nick said, Malik, you said we shouldn't be down and out on the future of this team. That is why I said disagree on, because Taylor has 30% winning percentage versus the North. That is disappointing. Yeah, but I'm not disappointed. I'm not down and out on the team's future when Joe Burrow's the quarterback. And
That's the thing is like how many of those games came when either Ryan Finley was starting, when Joe Burrow was hurt, either the first time or now. Like that's that context does matter. And again, we have both been critical of Zach Taylor and fairly in times, and I will praise him when he's deserving of it, when they've made the changes, when they've done things like change the offensive identity to do more stuff that lends itself to Jake Browning. Good job. Like that's a pat on the back thing. But at the same time, like we've been critical of him. We just said the play calling in instances and stretches, and especially in the red zone, has been sometimes questionable. But
I agree.
It's all about being fair and adding the context to the situation. And I think if you take away those games and just say, what about the Joe Burrow healthy games? Sure. Would you like to be at 60 or 70% winning in the AFC North? Yeah. But like, how good are these teams compared to all the other divisions? The AFC West, there's usually 2 other teams in a division of 4 that are just bottoming out, that are generally going to be under 500. That's rarely, if ever, the case in the North, depending on whatever the situation is, because of good coaching, good drafting, good players. And it's just always been one of the tougher divisions in the NFL.
That being said, I will say this, and I agree with you, everything you said. Losing, going winless in your division is unacceptable.
Hands down.
I am trying to be reserved a little bit because last time I gave my rant, I was told you're too negative. You're too this, you're too that. And so like, I'm trying to be a little more reserved and trying to give these guys, the staff, a fair shake.
It's just trying to be realistic, man. Like talk about what the evidence is out there. We can always do conjecture about like what we think might happen, but like ultimately all we can do is evaluate what we've been given. And
I'll say this, I obviously you guys all know how I feel about the play calling on a consistency basis. And my genuine feeling about the play calling is I think they've done a nice job the last 3 weeks, but I also still feel like we won't know the true measure of the growth that they've made as play callers until number 9 is back up in the lineup. We won't know that. I feel like today you can judge it off of it, but I feel like when the Pittsburgh throws so many different blitzes at you, and I think Jake Browning, this idea that, like there were people legitimately thinking Jake Browning could go somewhere else and be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And it's like, hey, he's played well in limited spots, but at the end of the day,
it's not an actual downfield offense. It's a lot of half field reads. It's a lot of play action, a lot of boots, a lot of screens.
And if you're a capable quarterback in the National Football League with this type potent Bengals offense, with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, with Tyler Boyd, with Joe Mixon, with Chase Brown, yada, 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 you'd think that you'd be able to field sufficient numbers. You think that you'd be able to put up good numbers, respectable numbers, and look and basically be looked at as like, hey, this guy can move
especially
an offense around.
Almost 70% of your yards at times are coming after the catch. That is a lot. That is a high number.
So like, I hate to say this, but like I think that we're getting 2 tales of what a Bengals offense looks like with Joe Burrow versus Jake Browning as well. And you wonder why Joe Burrow was paid the 270 whatever plus million he was paid is because when the Bengals do get down, he's able to uplift this team and really get us back in the game. Unfortunately, when the lead becomes 24-0, it's almost an insurmountable lead. It's hard to kind of get back in the game and really instill that belief. So that's just my thoughts on all that kind of stuff. Just want to remind everybody, every single week that the Bengals play a game, First Star Logistics will be doing a unique giveaway. On this week's giveaway, I don't know if you guys saw, but it is a keg. It's a kegerator. I told you I call it a kegerator from here on out because I didn't know that was the name of it. But if you guys want a chance to go win a kegerator, a custom themed Bengals kegerator, head on over to First Stars Logistics, Twitter or X, and check out their pin tweet and follow those steps for a chance to enter. When I believe the last chance to enter is tonight. So make sure you guys do that because, again, truly it is an awesome gift. I want to get some of these questions out here. So if you guys could do us a favor, drop your questions down below. Let's join in on the discussion, get you guys in on the discussion. Let's talk about it. So, all right, let's get to some of these things. Hey, Malik, I'm going to pound on the table if we don't invest in our interior D-line early day picks because 4-round or later defensive tackle picks are not cutting it. I agree with you. I think that the 3-tech spot is a spot that the Bengals have been looking to upgrade, but even beyond that, right? You want to upgrade the interior as a whole. Me and everyone were talking about it. You got some of these defensive guys playing a ridiculous amount of snaps and wonder why they're so gassed and why they look,
You can't have Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson playing damn near 1,000 snaps every season.
It's just not sustainable.
That can't be your only source of production. I know, obviously, BJ Hill was a heck of a pickup. Good job by the Bengals organization. Enjoy having him around, but there's there's still wanting there.
Yeah.
And if DJ Reader goes out, the whole run defense just collapses, and you can't have that. Now, fortunately, if you're looking for more of that nose tackle,
Mm-hmm.
there are more of those penetrating nose tackles that you can get in the third round or so. But
Yeah.
I definitely agree that, if you're there and the pick makes sense at the first round, I'm looking hard at the three tech.
Yeah.
For getting more pass rush on the interior, I'm looking at in the second, third, fourth round, definitely just even like third and fourth round, you can get some of the best nose tackles in college. And like, I would have loved a guy like a Keanu Benton or Mozzie Smith for the Bengals last year in the draft. But there will be other guys like that coming out, and we'll know more about those guys at draft time. And I'm sure they'll become heavily linked to the Bengals, who are going to be looking to beef up the trenches.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to the offseason coverage. I'm looking forward to being at the NFL Combine this year, talking to some people and just seeing where things are. I really think, though, the Bengals need to invest, obviously, in their interior defensive line. I just think it's important for getting some of these guys off the field so that way you can put together a sustainable defense. I think that's why you start to see us kind of getting gashed a little bit in the run game.
You've already invested so much in the secondary
Yeah.
too, between DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Jordan Battle. I feel like it's an appropriate time to kind of reinvest in the interior, because obviously you're paying 10 plus million to Sam Hubbard. I don't know what Trey Henderson's numbers at now, 17, 20, something like that.
Like 17 I think 16.
So between all that and getting Miles Murphy, you've kind of put a lot into the edge position. I think it's time definitely to, you paid the linebackers. So you got both your linebackers there. You feel pretty good about where your safeties are at least in terms of projecting where they grow to. I feel like clear and obvious answer, like you said, is interior defensive line.
One of the questions here that we've got, let me see where the question is. Why by Louis Malal Testa. Why do we abandon everything we've done in the last 3 weeks? We just play shotgun every single snap. I think that there was, and hear me out, I wonder if Evan shares the same thought process, but sometimes I think that coaches go into games and they have it already in their minds, hey, we're not going to be able to do such and such against said team. And the reason why I come away with that notion is because whenever the Bengals play the Steelers, they tend to get away from running the ball a lot earlier than we.
Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I remember when we were at the First Star Beach House watching the Eagles and 49ers game, we were hanging out with Joe Goodberry. We noticed like very early in the game, the Niners, who have been traditionally an under center team, do a lot of play action boot stuff like the Bengals are doing now. We're out in shotgun constantly, running out of shotgun, passing out of shotgun. And it was like you said, sometimes they think they have some sort of advantage by doing things. But I also think part of it was you got down early, quickly. Like in a divisional game, you probably start feeling the pressure, 14 down, and you go back to what you've done before. When that happens, you usually have Joe Burrow to go to. And unfortunately, like we said, the play action is not as respected when you're down 14-21, right? It's not as reliable. Teams are more content with you running the ball and kind of playing into that. And so, unfortunately, they did not see under center probably as viable and switched to that gun approach, which we know from the first time they played the Steelers that the gun approach with Jake Browning is not great. So I feel like it was a mix of the coaching staff maybe feeling a bit of the pressure from getting down early in the division game, paired with the game script going out of their favor very quickly.
I agree with you, man. I think it's one of those things where it's like you'd hope to see the evolution over time with this offense, and I think those are spots where we just haven't seen it just yet. And I do agree that sometimes, if it does feel like we kind of get in our own way. That's just my thought process. But somebody says only real trash team to go 0-6. What you gonna do, Bungles? Aaron Butler says that. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you, brother. Ruin Christmas. Don't let the Bengals ruin your Christmas. I promise you. Don't, it's there are bigger things in life to worry about. Somebody said, did you hear the commentator quote Taylor as laughing at teams for running against the Steelers? They have a better pass defense and run defense. This is Taylor's mindset going into the game. Yeah, I must have missed that, but I will say that I don't know.
I don't think that the defensive line consisting of Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and Aaron Highsmith I don't know that that's necessarily like a pushover defensive line. And Keanu Benton, who's a mammoth of a man. I don't know if I agree that look, the Steelers have not been good at defending explosive plays, period, through the air or on the ground. And again, I don't think that the Bengals made a dedicated effort to go, we're going to attack the Steelers through the air. I think they looked up at what the George Pickens play happened in 10 minutes when he scored that 86-yard touchdown. And then they got the ball back and then they scored again. So first quarter, you're down 14, and early in the second, you're down 21. Like, kind of mandates, like, you can try and run the ball to get back into the game, but obviously you got to try and put some points on the board. And every time they get in the red zone, they would just shoot themselves in the foot with bad sacks, turnovers, just questionable play calling on 1 yard to gain. Like, it was just, there was always something or someone different that contributed to it.
I agree. I would agree with you. Let's see some more questions. Thanks for the weekly therapy sessions this year, fellas. Tough season, injuries and miscues. We ain't going nowhere. It's fun to do shows and stuff like that and podcasts, obviously, when the team is winning. It is obviously for everyone. But at the same time, I believe that this team's future is still bright. I do believe that. I think that with Joe Burrow coming into the season with the Achilles injury and just everything that sort of reared its ugly head as the season was going down.
If there were spots you're looking at and places you need to improve, or defensive tackle, I feel like the running back room is pretty solidified at this point, and tight end, like, you're in a pretty good spot.
Oh yeah. So I think it's one of those spots where we know you like, it's not like you don't know the clear issues on this team or what they need to fix. We know what those are. We know interior defensive line is the area. You need more pass rush, honestly. I feel like they've allocated enough resources the last few years to offense to where you feel pretty good. I think we all have, at least from talking to people, I think I have a pretty good idea.
The receiver room is in a good spot, right? You got some good young guys back there. The secondary, same way. Safety, corner, you've got some good young guys back there. You've got solidified starters at both end spots, both linebacker spots. So really, you're looking at just the interior of that. Obviously, the Jonah Williams conversation is something we're going to talk about in the offseason. We're not going to get into that now because I know people are in their feelings and we like to react, and that's, fun. But
no, I agree with you, man. I think that you're all likelihood looking at a franchise tag for T. Higgins. I think I'd have to think the Bengals are going to be in the bring Jonah Williams back, train, if you will.
There is value in having consistency between your starters year to year, right? Which they're going to have a lot on defense, and there's no area of the field that really applies to more than your offensive line, right? Being able to communicate, being able to know how everybody plays, be able to pass things off, and kind of know and have that mind meld of the person playing next to you and how they do things. When was the last time the Bengals had the same offensive line year to year? 2014 to 2015? Like, it's been that long.
It's been a revolving door.
That can do wonders for you, but also, like we said before, man, like, just like any quarterback, you design a system to accentuate their strengths and decrease the amount of times they're exposed to their weaknesses. Same way you would do it with receivers. You're not asking slot guys to go downfield and be ball winners, right? It's the same thing with the offensive line. You got to send sometimes running backs, tight ends, whatever, outside of the tackle, even if it's just a quick block and release, to try and force that edge defender to say, hey, it's not worth my time to try and go inside. Outside. Let me try and go win inside. Where Orlando Brown is strong, right? Obviously, he struggles on that edge stuff. Jonah Williams, obviously, when you're going up against TJ Watt, when you're going up against these premium edge defenders, like, he's an average tackle. He's going to lose. Even the best tackles lose, right? Yeah, it's just tough, man. Like, that's the nature of the position, and you just got to try and limit the amount of times that you expose a guy to the deficiencies in their game. And maybe a year with the same guys, that helps the coaching staff figure out different ways to do that, and helps them to figure out ways to play together to also help out, make up for each other's weaknesses.
We have an interesting question in the chat that was a lot earlier.
Okay.
By Balancing Bike Life, he says, did we make a mistake keeping both linebackers and getting rid of both safeties, especially considering how young our corners are? I'll say this. I think losing your safeties, especially Von Bell and Jesse Bates, and seeing how great of communicator Jesse Bates was and getting help and getting the defense set and all that kind of stuff, it certainly hurts, man. It certainly hurts because the big explosive plays was not something this Bengals defense we've grown accustomed to with this Bengals defense, especially when you have two veterans back there. I think the loss of those guys were understated a little bit. And I think Luan Romo was on record. He's saying, hey, if it'll be a dark day if I lose both my safeties. And it was a dark day, and that happened. So now you're tasking, albeit two rookies, essentially, even though Dax Hill's a second-year player, he's a rookie. And from a starting standpoint, you're tasking him with, the communication aspect and all that kind of stuff. It's tough, but I think that it's the National Football League. You can't make excuses. That's why you have preseason. That's why you have training camp. You're hoping that these guys get up to speed. Obviously, it's going to be rough at some point, but the hope is, at least, I would assume the hope was from this coaching staff was by this point of the season that they'd be clicking on cylinders. But I also don't think it helped that waited so late into the season to finally establish, hey, who's going to be your safety core, essentially.
And here's the other thing, right? Because what do we say when one of our guys is missing a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next man up, right? And the NFL cycle of team identity, whatever you want to call it, team makeup, roster building, makeup, it changes every 3 or so years. That's kind of the NFL cycle.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of contracts for 2-3 years, unless you're a big deal guy and you get 4 or 5, right? By that nature, you kind of always have to be shifting who is kind of the core of your defense. And I feel like they looked at Logan Wilson and they looked at Jermaine Pratt and said, Logan Wilson, you've kind of been a captain on this defense the last couple of years. We feel comfortable handing the veteran reins, so to speak, of this defense to you guys. You got to step up and be leaders. And I feel like both Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are having years below expectation of what we'd expect for them. And I feel like that's compounding the issue of the safeties being gone. And I feel like not only the safeties leaving, but then bringing in the literal worst safety in the NFL and playing him back there for 7 or 8 weeks also compounded. So it's not just losing those guys, it's losing those guys and having the linebackers who are supposed to be filling in as the new captains of the defense play below their level of expectation. It's having Nick Scott be the literal worst safety in the NFL for 7 or 8 weeks, making it look even worse. Like, if you put Jordan Battle in there, are there some rookie mistakes at the start of the season? Probably, sure. But does it look so bad where you have all the missed tackles and all the issues? Probably not. But yeah, it definitely hurts losing those guys for sure. I expect that to look better going into next season. Obviously, these guys, all the young guys, Dax Hill, Jordan Battle, DJ Turner, have had flashes of what we expect and what we see the greatness in their potential. But eventually that potential will need to be realized. And I think another year with all this playing experience is really going to do them well in that regard.
I agree, man. Keeping more conversations. Trying to get to all your questions. I apologize. Somebody asked, do you think that this Bengals team is too finesse and not physical enough for the AFC North?
I hate this like branding terminology of finesse versus power, right? What is the fact that they were the spread Joe Burrow offense? Does that make them finesse? Because again, it's about playing to your strengths. Like if you would have asked me last year, I would have said they're not a finesse team because they were running so much power and so much man and gap and they were running the ball well. I think anybody who in the last 3 weeks, if you just cut today off and said, hey, are they running the ball well? Or are they running well with, you'd be like, yeah, for sure.
Right.
They're running the ball down people's throats. They're looking great. Like they look better than they have all year. I feel like we're reacting maybe a little bit too much to one game.
I agree.
And again, the offense has completely changed its identity from what it was through weeks 1 to 4 and 5, then weeks 5 through 8 or 9, and then Joe Burrow got hurt and they had the first game with Jake Browning, to then another different offense in that sense. So it's like we say they're the offense is too finesse. It's been completely different offenses for hurt Joe Burrow, for healthy Joe Burrow, and for Jake Browning versus the Steelers, and now Jake Browning versus the other team. So like I don't know which offense we're talking about as being finesse if we're running a bunch of gun, but they were under center for all the Jake Browning games. So like what offense are we talking about here would be my question for that.
I'm going to get to about 2 more questions. This comment section is very
very lively.
Right now. They're very starting to go at each other, Bengals fans. Don't go at each other, Bengals fans.
We're all suffering together, guys. It's okay. We all
you see Evans got his beer in his hand. Yeah. Evans got his beer in his hand. So somebody said everyone overreacts to a bad game. There are lots of reasons for this bad season. There has been plenty of positive before today. Number 9 will be back. I agree, Aussie Bengals fan. I think you're taking the You're thinking about
we knew what happened when Joe Burrow went down, guys. I know there was a little bit of hope that got ignited over the last couple of weeks, but again, we saw the cracks in the foundation, right? We said this is not going to last, and unfortunately, everything kind of came to a head today.
Ohio Lakers says my beer's in the freezer. He says his beer's in the freezer, so he's not joining you there right now.
Got to get it cold, man.
Yeah.
He got that hot garage beer. He's trying to get it right.
Dean Reedy says young lack of communication playing together on DBs. I would agree with that as well. I agree with that.
Yeah, but then it's also Cheeto. Like Cheeto getting beat one-on-one multiple times. Like that's our veteran corner. But at the same time, again, man, like you're getting older. The injuries are piling up for him, and that's again. I'm not asking him to be all pro Cheeto coming off the injury, but again, all we can do is evaluate what's on the field. On the field, he looked slower. He looked like his injuries and age were catching up with him a little bit, and he wasn't the all NFL type corner, top 5, top 10 corner that he was the years prior.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the ACL injury is definitely impacting him a little bit more.
Understandably so. Understandably so.
Yeah. Let's get some more. I just hate the fact that we made Mason Rudolph look, great. Again, that's one thing we said.
Everybody was saying, "Oh, the Noah Brown game is not a big deal. He cooked the okay. Well, what's Pickens done? What's Pickens done recently?" And then he goes for almost damn near 200, and it's like, guys, I hate to say there might be an explosive play issue again, like the same stuff we try to talk about after the Texans game.
And you try to really look for some positives as to what we saw today. Trey Anderson is still a beast, I would say.
T. Higgins is good.
T. Higgins is still very good.
Joe Mixon was running hard.
Yeah, he was running hard. He was showing some promise, and
it's
rough. And
I think that's probably about the end of it. Yeah, that's
the extent of things, right? I mean, somebody said, Clint, I'm not going to pronounce your name, but Sports Car says Brown Jr. needs to take a pay cut, $20 million to look this overmatched. Also, Hubbard has pretty much disappeared. Your thoughts?
Again, man, like we knew when we signed Orlando Brown that he was going to have trouble with speed off the edge. So when you get matched up with a speed rusher off the edge and you don't offer him help, there are going to be snaps where that looks bad. There were snaps with communication breakdowns where guys were running free and just running straight at Jake Browning. Again, that's communication. And there are 3, 4, 5, maybe borderline tackles in the NFL that can just be left on an island and can defend inside out, whatever else, with no limitations. Again, there's got to be realistic expectations. We're not asking, I don't know, you're not asking Tutu Atwell to go downfield and win jump balls on the boundary, right? Like, because again, it's not his play style, it's not his stature. When Orlando Brown gets beat outside by speed rushers because that's how he plays. He's a power guy. He's a get your hands on you. He's a win on anytime someone tries to go inside or go through you. He has that power. But when it comes to having that speed to be able to shut down and the agility to beat down rushers, people laugh and say, "Oh, your combine numbers don't matter." Like, because, this is where it matters, right? Like, he's found ways to be successful as a tackle in the NFL despite his agility weakness, right? And part of that, again, comes to the coaching staff where you have to be understanding of, hey, we've got a bad matchup here. What ways are we going to force the defender to think, I can't win outside, I need to try and attack inside? Whether, again, that's running backs and tight end routes. When you do the flat, just put a shoulder into the guy as you're running out. Just throw the shoulder into the end. Just make him go back inside to where Orlando Brown can play to his strength. And that's part on. I have a trouble blaming Orlando Brown for asking him to do things that we know he's not strong at, right? But I also understand from the coaching staff standpoint of, you can't just give him chip help every single play.
Right.
You just got to try and win with the losses and try and get the ball out quickly on those plays, try and defend the quarterback spot. And also, Browning does not feel pressure at all. Like, he does not navigate the pocket well. He is mobile, but I think it's completely fine to say that he has average to below average pocket feel. I remember there was one where, like, oh, Browning was feeling the pressure, and I think, like, they mean the sense of, like, he got hit because he did not even know the pressure was coming.
And I just want to address some stuff as well. So 2 things. Jason Tandy says, he said, stop giving these coaches a pass. Every team is hurt. I'm tired of being the get right team of the. No, I don't think anyone here is giving the coaching staff a pass.
I just said the coaching staff was at fault for Orlando Brown for not giving him more help on it.
Yeah, I don't think it. I'm certainly not. If you've been on, you must be new to the channel. I've probably been the most vocal when it comes to the coaching staff and the lack thereof play calling, but it gets draining, right? Saying the same stuff over and over again. The fact of the matter is, we know that this offense does lack a true identity, and they have for quite some time. And it's, a lot of people have let the last few weeks blind them to the fact. And I didn't say much because obviously winning cures all. Everybody, but the fact of the matter is that it still has to be like what is this team like? What is their go-to? What is something that they're good at, right? What is their go-to? It's like almost like a boxer who throws a mean right hand. That's his fallback option. That's what he goes to when the time gets tough. What is the Bengals go-to? And that's something from an offensive standpoint that rears its ugly head. And we're talking about year 5 in this Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan system. Of course, the system has been tailored since Joe Burrow has become the quarterback, but he's not here right now. So those things start to rear its ugly head because when you have a quarterback that is so elite at processing and being able to change plays at the line of scrimmage and all that kind of stuff like that. I mean, it's just even if you want to see me get passionate, you want to see me get, be real about it. I have a big issue with the fact that they didn't call a quick play, like, when Yoshi Voss, or I think it was Yoshi Voss, didn't get his feet down on that last play. And it's like, hey, get up to the line of scrimmage. Let's call a play. Let's run a play. Therefore,
I feel like that was on Browning too, because as soon as they get up to the line of scrimmage and they're ready to hike the ball, like Browning starts looking around and talking to everybody like he's about to change the play at the line of scrimmage. And I feel like that's maybe a guy in his 4th start that just is not quite.
And then we've got Alex Flores saying, but yet the Bengals paid him big money. Referring to Orlando Brown. And he said it, but yet the Bengals paid him big money. What you supposed to do? That's a bad deal. Chiefs knew. Well, Chiefs really didn't know. Chiefs did try to bring back Orlando Brown.
And then signed Juwan Taylor for more money than Orlando Brown got. And now he leads the league in penalties. Yeah, the Chiefs knew.
Come on. The fact of the matter is,
you signed him to be a top 10 tackle, not a top 3 tackle. You signed him to be the 8th, 10th best tackle.
I'll put it into situations like this. If you guys want a little bit of a silver outline, you look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who were without Lamar Jackson last year, right? They were still competitive. They found their ways into the playoffs with Tyler Huntley. They lost in the playoffs to the Cincinnati Bengals. You look at them this year, they're a team that is what? One of the top teams in the AFC. Are they the top team in the AFC right now? The Ravens are the Ravens.
Yeah,
they're one of the top teams.
Yeah,
regardless, one of the top teams in the AFC
division
winner.
I think they are.
So you look at what having their quarterback does and what changing their offensive system looks like. You see what could happen. Listen, I think it would have been an uphill climb for the Bengals had they even had made the playoffs. Even if they do make the playoffs, because it's not all done yet, but their playoff chances certainly took a hit today. But asking that of Jake Browning, who once again has been a practice squad lifer, I keep saying it, is a lot to ask, especially when you put him together with incompetent play calling on a consistent basis. That's what this looks like. So I'm not gonna, we can sit up here and talk about the doom and gloom. We'll have plenty of time on this channel to talk about the offseason and talk about what the Bengals need to do to put themselves back into contention. But right now we're just discussing the loss of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a hard game to go in there and say, you know what? Go in there and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, who everybody is doubting, in Pittsburgh with a backup quarterback. Like that's what it comes down to.
And no Jamar Chase and no DJ Reader.
Yeah, and again, great coaching. Great coaching can overcome a lot of things, right? But I just think that some things when you don't have necessarily the great play calling, those things can rear its ugly head. I want to answer a question earlier. Somebody asked about Trey Henderson being dropped into pass coverage. Just literally a similar conversation you and I had, where I understand why it's being done. It's to show, like Lou said, it's to show offenses, quarterbacks, different looks, make them second guess, hold the ball a little bit longer. But I'm just not a fan of taking your best pass rusher and only pass rusher on a consistent basis and putting him into coverage and letting people get a cheap shot on him or whatever the case may be, whatever that might look like in a pass coverage situation. So I've never been a fan of putting Sam Hubbard at middle linebacker at spots. I've never been a fan of throwing Trey Hendrickson back into coverage at spots. Hell, I saw DJ Reader get dropped back into coverage at one point this season. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. I understand why it's done, but to me, it just seems like it doesn't seem really to work as often or get the desired result.
And part of that can be disguising better because like the idea behind that is you're trying to mask where the pressure is coming from, right? So you have multiple guys in the line of scrimmage. So they might have Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson on the line of scrimmage, and they might have them ready to bail out or ready to rush the passer. And then so the linebackers will come on one side. And so the idea is that you end up having the offense waste a blocker, right? Because they think the pressure is going to come from DJ Reader, the guard's ready, the center's ready, and then he drops. And then suddenly the guard and the center are looking around for somebody to block while the edge is overloaded. Right. And I get that. But there also is, it's a lot like play action, right? Where they say if you want to sell play action, the offensive line has to really look like they are blocking hard, right? If you run play action and they're half-assed and pass blocking, the defense isn't going to buy it, right?
Yeah. There's
a little bit of that same element that I've kind of noticed with the Bengals when they're doing the simulated pressures and trying to mess with that, where I'm gonna stand up here for a second. Real quick.
I love this.
Right. So like
I love this.
This with my weight coming forward looks like I'm about to rush the passer, right? Versus if I'm a linebacker and I'm up there and I've got and I'm kind of like this, right? I got my weight on my back foot. It looks like I'm about to bail. These are like the tells that quarterbacks are looking for. And I've noticed a lot of the times that the Bengals linebackers or some of the other blitzers, the weight can kind of give a tell a little bit about where they're going to hell. So that can be a little bit of why you said these don't work as often as I feel like they should. That might be a small thing where it's it's a small coaching detail where you've got a younger team, you have other people who maybe aren't just used to selling it as much. And it can be small little tells like that you look at on film after seeing it for a couple of weeks and say, oh, look at this. Every time they bail out and pressure, the linebackers are kind of shifting their weight backwards a little bit. That's something to look for. So
it's like a telltale. Yeah.
Right. So even if the call might be good, sometimes the way it's coached or the way it's sold by the players on the field might not lend to being as successful as it could. So that's something to watch for. It's a easy correctable thing, but I agree that generally when you have no other pass rushers that have been productive, dropping Trey Hendrickson, who's your all-pro edge rusher, is not necessarily conducive to getting a lot of pass rushing success.
Right. I agree. Guys, it's been an interesting Saturday for sure. This too shall pass with the Bengals, of course, as in everything. We hope that this doesn't ruin your Christmas, and we appreciate you guys for supporting this channel, supporting the Sit Down Malik Wright State of the Jungle. We appreciate that. We'll be back obviously on Wednesday to go live to discuss this and look ahead to the Kansas City Chiefs game. Make sure you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live. We really hope that you guys do enjoy your Christmas with your family, and try not to let this get you down too much. Try not to let this get you down too much. Hope that you guys enjoy your holiday season with family, but